Hello and thanks for watching this video on the zones of the palm and what they mean. So I'm just going to go over here. I've already kind of demonstrated compartmentalizing the palm into different zones. So the upper part is active and the lower part is passive. The active part is what we do consciously and with the information we've received. The information we receive is, I suppose, metaphorically and figuratively, through our fingers. So our fingers represent how we process that information. Long fingers are highly analytical and they take their time to process that information, absorbing every detail. Short fingers are doers. They get the overall picture and get to work. They don't like reading the fine print. So to simplify, long fingers, thinkers. Short fingers are doers. And then we've got the left and the right side of the palm, which is the conscious and unconscious, so the radial and the ulnar. And that's because you've got Neptune, lunar, central plane of Mars, upper Mars, Mercury, Apollo, half of Saturn, and again part of the central plane of Mars. And that's all unconscious. And then in the conscious side, you've got Neptune, Venus, part of the Mars mount there, half of Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars negative. And that's the conscious side there. So everything we do consciously relates to these areas of the palm. So I'll just go over the four kind of quadrants of the palm. So the first quadrant is all around Mercury, Apollo, half of Saturn, and part of the Mars, the central plane of Mars. So this first quadrant overall, to summarize, is how we put ourselves on show to the outside world. It's all of these mounts combined. So it's how we express and show ourselves, reveal ourselves to the world. So I say half of Saturn, and it's interesting that the palm is divided. It runs straight through the Saturn mount. So this half of Saturn here is the half that's relating to our way we think about our morals and our ethics, because Saturn is about hard work. It's about being an upstanding citizen, planning, thinking ahead. It's how we fit into society. It's how we work. It's stability. It's all of these things. But it being but the half of Saturn that the first quadrant relates to is our morals and our ethics. It's about how we reveal ourselves as a citizen, how we reveal ourselves in society. So that's how that half of Saturn relates in this first quadrant. And then there's Apollo and Mercury, and also the central part of the central plane of Mars here. So we unconsciously but actively show ourselves as and express and communicate, show ourselves off in a social setting here in these respects. So that's how the first quadrant relates, how all of these mounts relate and show what these things say about a person in the person's palm. So if you've got someone who has, say, you divided the palm four ways like this, and you've got someone with very developed mounts all in these areas here, they're going to be a show-off. They're going to communicate and express well. They'll be quick learners, and they'll be able to utilize these skills and attributes in a social setting well, and they will see themselves as, you know, upstanding citizens as well. I hope that all makes sense. I'm kind of rambling a bit here. The second quadrant, so we've done number one, is all about self-development, and that's because it ties in with, as I say, that the part of Saturn that's about progressing in career, and it's about Jupiter, which is all about decision making, authority, judgment. It's the part of the central plane of Mars, which correlates to these aspects as well, and Mars negative, which is all about motivation and anger. Anger is not a positive thing, but it does motivate us. If someone is harming a loved one, we step in to defend out of anger. It's an instinctive thing that inbuilt into us to protect and defend. So there's always a positive to be drawn from every negative. So the first quadrant here is all about self development. It's all about the self. Sorry, that's the second quadrant. So we've done the first, we've done the second. The third over here is the passive unconscious side. So it incorporates that passive unconscious side of how we react towards others. It's also our planning. This is Mars positive. It's how we implement the plans we've put in place, which directs, as a direct correlation of Mars negative. And it's also lunar, which is our dreams and our memory, our thoughts, our creativity. And so I suppose Mars, sorry, that's my dog barking. So the central plane of Mars negative, the central plane of Mars is a bit bigger there. So there's upper Mars. That's a bit big. Here's lunar. And Neptune, Pluto, sorry, and a little bit of Neptune as well. There we go. Perhaps that's made things easier, or maybe not. Bit of a mess. So the central plane of Mars here encompasses, it's to do with, as I say, how we see others and how others see us, how we react in the social settings, how we interact in our social settings. So this part of the central part of Mars within the unconscious passive side of the palm is how we react unconsciously in social settings. So if it's quite sort of depressed, it's certainly someone who reacts passively, literally, in a social setting. If it's concaved, it's someone who is a bit of a pushover, I suppose. Mars positive, that's Mars positive, is how we plan things, it's how we implement things. And a headline that runs down and flicks off towards Mars positive is someone who is thinking about money, and that's because it's tied in with that planning. Lunar is, as I say, it's dreams, it's memory, it's imagination and creativity. It's how we draw from our unconscious side in order to create. And Pluto is a rather unexplored part of palmistry, which is a deeper side. It's an extension of lunar, and it's an even deeper part of memory and creativity and imagination and dreams. So someone with a very developed Pluto mount is certainly someone who has access to deeper memories, a richer imagination, and has an ability to create utilizing these. So it could even be someone who's has an ability to draw on experiences from ancestors' memories or past life memories, theoretically. Neptune, again, is also an unexplored part of palmistry. It's how we captivate others. So unconsciously, if the unconscious side of Neptune is more developed than the conscious side of Neptune, we are unconsciously captivating others. We are good at holding an audience, holding a conversation, publicly speaking, without even realizing it. We draw crowds without even meaning to. We draw attention to us without meaning to. And those that have a developed side of Neptune on the passive but conscious side are those that doing it more actively, consciously. Venus is our vitality. It's also how we express emotively as well. It's stability and family and loved ones, friends. It's security and comforts as well. So we've moved into the conscious zone here. So it's how we consciously react to others. So this fourth zone here is how we it's our support, it's our family, and as I say, it's how we react to others. So it's part of this the central part of Mars that ties in with the familiar, with family life at home, which is why family influences cross this part of Mars here. It's also security and the pleasures as well. So it's more around how, Neptune is more developed here. It's more around how we captivate those closer to home, I suppose. So you can kind of see how the mounts are not as clear cut as it might sort of suggest in certain palmistry books. There are crossovers. I mean, although I've put, literal lines in the soil here, it's not really how it works. The lines are literally blurred. So each mount of the palm represents certain characteristics and attributes and skills developed, inherited, or otherwise. A mount ideally should be slightly elevated, firm to the touch, or at least have some sort of springiness to it, ideally. If a mount is flat or depressed or even concave, then it's devoid of the abilities or attributes or characteristics associated with that mount, and there's work to be done there. So Jupiter being all things authoritative, self-assured, knowledgeable, and high in judgment, decision making, ambition and ego. A person who, so it's a politician, a policeman, a statesman, even a salesman, a teacher, particularly. All these people should have relatively strong Jupiter mounts. And sometimes you find a mount it's not developed, as the textbooks might suggest, and it's actually developed in between the mount, and that kind of suggests a combination of both the mounts working towards allying with each other to work towards what they both represent. So I'm getting ahead of myself a bit here, but I think you get the gist. So when you come across someone with a short Jupiter finger, we don't have that here, and a flat or depressed Jupiter mount, you're looking at someone with lacking in conviction and the confidence to carry out, not lacking conviction, I mean lacking in enthusiasm, combined with lacking in the self-assurance to carry things out. So if you're reading someone's palm and you do see someone with both those issues, I suppose, then it's important to motivate and guide them in a way that tackles these issues. And similarly, if you come across someone with a long or well-developed Jupiter finger combined with an overdeveloped mount of Jupiter, this is someone that could do with a bit of counselling in toning down how they come across with their ideas, with their decision, their controlling nature, and how they govern over others. And they could certainly do with a lesson in calming down, really, in how they are perceived by others, how they come across. So Saturn is a more complex. It's a more complex one because, as I say, you've got their abilities to plan and be practical and work hard and create stability. But then sometimes you might see someone with a bit of inner conflict, especially if they have, for example, and again we don't have that here, if they had a short Saturn finger and an overdeveloped Saturn mount, you're looking at someone that is potentially it's hard to explain this one. I've thrown myself in it. So potentially someone that's an excessive planner, works too hard, but isn't able to fit themselves within society's accepted idea, I suppose. So a short Saturn finger is someone who is not very willing to go with the grain, society's idea of what's normal. They're a bit of a free bird. So I suppose if you had someone with an overdeveloped mount of Saturn, then they are they're they're planning so much, they're thinking so much ahead, they're sensitive, overly sensitive to the outside world around them, that they're retracting from societal norms. So there's a bit of a conflict there, a conflict, if not with themselves, then with the outside world. I was just trying to make an example there, and I ended up really confusing myself. So on the flip side, let's flip it around and make things hard again. Got someone with a long Saturn finger, whoops, and a depressed Saturn mount. So that would be long Saturn, depressed Saturn mount. Someone incredibly sensitive to the world around them, but without the ability to plan ahead. That would make them quite a depressive person. So someone with a developed mount of Apollo shows a creative flair, artistic skill, a love for life, and an ability to sense the textures and colours and feelings, and implement those in a way that's useful. On the flip side, being that sensitive, it's a double-edged sword, I suppose. But certainly someone with a well-developed mount of Apollo is someone who needs their creativity to be noticed. Someone with a flat mount of Apollo is someone who doesn't pay attention, I suppose, to their environment, and keeps themselves to themselves, really. So the Mercury mount, people with a strong Mercury mount have the abilities to become whatever they want to become, really. It's all about learning, knowledge and language and communication and expression, and these really are the skills that we need to move around in the world, travel. So journalists, I mean anything really, because any profession really can require travel, particularly journalists, I suppose, reporters, photographers, presenters, politicians, that would work. So a person with a large or well-developed Mercury mount and a short Mercury finger is someone who operates on their instincts and intuition quickly and very well. Someone who has a long Mercury finger and a well-developed Mercury mount is someone who's able to keep this this hunch in check. So everyone can learn from someone with a long Mercury finger and a well-developed Mercury mount. So Mars negative. A well-developed mount of Mars negative is the ability to be courageous, to act out of exactly that, bravery, to utilize anger in the most positive way possible, motivation, and physical drive. So any athlete or martial artist, can't get my words out, especially martial artists, have very well developed amounts of Mars negative. The central plane of Mars it relates to how we view others and how others view us. It will show differently on the left and right hand. The central plane of Mars is a sort of follow on from Mars negative and Mars positive. It's a bit of both. So anyone who finds themselves in situations of conflict really could benefit from a developed amount of Mars negative, Mars and Mars positive. Really, anyone could benefit from all these, but the central plane of Mars is how we find ourselves in all walks of life, all social settings. So whether that's family and friends, whether it's social settings in memory, how we look back on our social settings and replay those. It's how we show and reveal ourselves in social settings, and it's also how we develop ourselves socially as well. So it's all of those things combined. And Mars positive, as I've said, it's about planning. So an interesting thing, and I've just been reading it in this great little book here, Palmistry, The Whole View by Judith Hipskind. Yeah, that's her name. I'll put her in the description. She mentions a really good little note here about the Mars mounts, which I didn't actually know. I've not read this before. So Mars negative being the ability to drive into action, and Mars positive being the ability to plan. She says you can think of the two as sort of filling stations, and once an idea has been created, you kind of fill up the car and move through all the mounts and fill up again and move back through the mounts again, because you need the skills to react and interact with the environment, to work hard and to self-develop and to bring yourself right back again, to bring about yourself, to motivate yourself again. So I just thought that was a great little analogy that she puts across in her book. And the Venus mount, as I've mentioned, it's our vitality, it's our immune system, it's our it's also our emotions, how we react and feel outwardly. It's the amount of, as it suggests, love, family, support and comfort, but it's also vitality and stamina and energy. And so it's extremely important that it has the right width. Too much and a person can be too dependent on others to provide that support, and too lacking, they may lack the emotional intelligence that people require to maintain a relationship, a loving relationship. And once the Venus mount is once you've established the amount of sort of physical energy and vitality, any sort of leftover development of that Venus mount is then part of their emotional state and their emotional makeup. So a Venus mount that actually kind of flows over into the unconscious is someone who is unconsciously very aware of their environment, very loving, very giving, and may even have a harmonious kind of nature with nature and animals and others, but also may have a preoccupation with others in perhaps even a sexual way as well. And Luna being the place of dreams and imagination, creativity, is restlessness as well, which is why travel lines are also named restless lines, because it's being imagination and creativity is a place of escapism. So a person with a well-developed lunar mount is someone who is highly imaginative, creative, not necessarily artistic, but it does go hand in hand with having, a well-developed lunar and a well-developed Apollo mount as well. And often someone with a well-developed lunar is someone that can be prone to fantasizing and escapism. Someone who is in tune with tapping into their unconscious ideas, their dreams. So they're quite often into symbology, symbols, metaphors, and poetry, writing. So, I say they're not necessarily creative, but I think inherently people with well-developed lunar mounts are, but don't necessarily, or may not have developed, those skills into fruition. So it's often said that someone with a developed lunar mount is someone who likes being by the water, and water is forever associated with inspiration, especially in sort of Celtic lore and mythology. Just thought that was an interesting tie-in there. So sometimes you find someone with there's different. I mean, Luna's quite a big mount, and sometimes you'll find someone with part of their lunar mount, part of the side. Sometimes one side of the hand is, one segment of Luna is just a little bit more raised than another. So we've got Mars positive, or upper Mars here if you like, but just under that, if this part of Luna, and that's an exaggeration, is pronounced out of the side of the palm, this is someone, as I've stated, who has an affinity for water, and is a natural creative. If this part of the palm is raised, it's someone who has a quick, how can I put this? Someone who has an ability to draw on memories from childhood as though they experienced them a moment ago. Their memory and experiences are connected in a way that others just don't have. So, and the flip side to that is that they may hold grudges, or they may find it hard to let go. They might hang on to the past, but at the same time, memory is a powerful tool for them. And then someone with a pronounced lower section of lunar is someone who has access to the deeper memories that go beyond this life, so ancestral memories, or past life memories potentially. And I have already mentioned a little bit about Neptune, I know, but it's also, I didn't mention, it's the place of hypnotism and enchanting. So a person who has a well-developed amount of Neptune has an inherent ability, or consciously developed ability to hypnotize others, and you often see it with musicians, sociopaths, and psychologists. So, and we'll be looking at all of those in later videos. I'm going to be looking at Charles Manson. I'm going to do a video on him, and Ted Bundy. I'm going to do a video on serial killers, sociopaths and psychopaths, because their palms are just fascinating case studies. But that's on my other playlist. So sorry for this very long video on the mounts and the quadrants of the palm. I've been a bit all over the place with this one, but I just wanted to kind of provide a little bit of context to the areas of the palm and how they can tell us more information about a person. So thanks for watching. Next time, I'm not sure what I'm going to do next, so I'm going to think on what the next stage is, and what the next things I think I need to get across in the process of learning palmistry. Thank you if you've been if you watched all my videos up to this point on learning palmistry. Thank you, and please provide me with any kind of comments. Any feedback at all is welcome, negative or otherwise. If it's constructive, I want to hear it, because it helps me make better videos and ultimately be a better palmist and teacher as well. If there's things that you want to know specifically, please ask away, email me. I'm happy to answer any questions at all. If there's any recommendations for books as well, ask away. I've got a ton of books, and I've spent over 20 years finding the best books, because the hard part is knowing what's a good book, and I've done all that hard work for you. So thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe, and if you really love it, give it a share. See you next time.